Hello and welcome to this Affinity software tutorial. Now I say software because this should work pretty much the same in Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher. Now I'm going to do most of this in Photo because it's the program I'm most comfortable with, but I will have a brief look at Designer and Publisher at the end just to sort of demonstrate that what can be done here can be done there as well. Now the purpose of this video is to sort of trying to encourage you to sort of rename your layers and groups and what have you, and to organize them better, and you can also color code them to help in that sort of effect that we're looking for. Now this is a little bit of tinkering that I did about 3 or 4 days ago, and it's got, as you can see, it's got quite a few layers, but not a vast amount. But let's say I did this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've come back to it and I want to do a bit more tinkering. Well, as it stands at the moment, when it's just got like background, group, LUTs, what have you, it doesn't really tell me what is going on here and what is doing what and for what reason. So renaming the layers will help in that respect, and also sort of organizing them a bit better will also help. I mean, it's obviously, if you're going to be doing a photograph, say like one off from start to finish in one sitting, you probably don't need to worry about this. But if it's a project that you're going to be spending a lot of time on and over a few days or weeks or what have you, organizing your filing system of your layers will be very helpful. Like I said, it may not be as important in Affinity Photo, but let's say in Affinity Designer, you're drawing this really massive picture. You could have hundreds of layers, thousands of layers. So organizing your layer system is sort of much more essential. So I know that what I did here was like the initial star background. Now I wanted to work out what the astrophotography filter did. So I've added a filter to that background. Obviously you can't see that because filters are sort of destructive. So, but if I click on the name here and rename this stars, I immediately know that that layer is the stars. I then added a firework picture, and I added a levels adjustment to sort of get rid of any sort of area around the firework. But I'm going to rename this one firework. Then the next bit I added was the picture of this girl, which I'd already cut out, and I just copy and pasted it in, the girl with the photographer camera, and I added a few adjustments because I made that into a group so that those adjustments would only affect the picture of the girl with the camera. So you could rename these if you want, but as they're in a group, it's easier probably just to rename the group, and I'll just call this girl with camera. And the next bit I added was it was a picture of some sort of light streaks and colours and sort of bokeh effects, and I just changed the blend mode to colour, and I added a layer mask just to get rid of any sort of sharp edges so they weren't visible here. So I'm going to rename that I'm going to call it flare effect, as I don't know what else to call it. And then on top of that I added 2 LUTs, and I like the way it affected the picture, but I didn't like the way it affected the girl with the camera. So I added a layer mask to each, and the first LUT I just deleted it from certain areas, I think it was her skin, and the second LUT I deleted it from the whole image of her. So I don't necessarily need to rename those 2, but what I will do is I will highlight the top one, hold down Control, and then click on the next one, and then right click and group those together and call those just LUTs minus girl. So hopefully you can see that just by renaming these, if I come back to this file, weeks later, I will know automatically what each layer is doing just by their names. And by grouping these LUTs together, that sort of tidies up that part and organises those better. Now, when it comes to like the colour coding part of this, you can say right click, and then along the bottom here you've got these coloured dots, so you can colour code. If I click on this red one, it will put a red section here, and say like the LUTs, if I right click that group and let's say go for green, if I open up that group, they're all colour coded green. So it's sort of a visual representation of items that are all working together. So this shows how by renaming and organising and possibly colour coding certain sections, you will know instantly just by looking at it what is going on, and it can also shrink down the amount of layers that are visible at any one time and make it easier to follow what is going on. So hopefully that sort of explains that well. So if I come to Affinity Designer, now I've opened up the same image in Affinity Designer because it can open Affinity Photo files, and as you can see, I could just click and rename files. I can right click and color code them, and I can group items together. So all 3 options are available in Affinity Designer, and in Affinity Photo again you can right click selected group layers, group them together, and you can color code them, and obviously you can rename just by clicking on the name and altering it that way. So all 3 programs will rename and they will group files together if you've highlighted them all, and you can color code if that will help you to work out which layers are working together. And because even because that was a group, but I mean even when it's a child layer, if I right click on that and color code that blue, it should, yes it has, color coded the child layer blue as well. So I mean, it's obviously working together because it's a child layer, but the color coding will help demonstrate that they are working together. So basically that is it. Hopefully this will be of help to some people, and thank you for watching, and goodbye.